do want to say, having sat and listened to Nate's description of the travel that the winner of the auction will get, I think if I can suggest to Bruce and Becky and Meg, if you next year include that Nate will go on the trip with you and explain everything you see, you can either double the charge for each raffle ticket or double the number of tickets you sell. Nate, you're doing terrific. Thank you. Thank you very much. Senator Snow, thank you so much for taking the time from your busy schedule to be with us this evening. And a warm welcome to her husband, Governor McKernan. Thank you, Jock, very much for joining with us. When I first entered the Senate by appointment, I was the only Democrat in the four-member Maine delegation to the Congress. Jock and Olympia were in the House, and Bill Cohen was in the Senate. But from the very first day and the very first meeting of the Maine delegation, there was never a word of partisanship on anyone's side. We had disagreements. We often had our parties pushing us and pulling us in different directions. But there was one commitment that we shared and that we understood was our highest obligation, and that was to the people of Maine. And in the nearly 15 years that I served in the Senate, the identity of the members of the delegation changed. The partisan composition changed, but that attitude never changed. And I've always been grateful to Olympia, to Jock, and to my very dear friend Bill Cohen for making me feel an appointed senator, given almost no chance to be elected in my own right, and a member of a different party, making me feel like a partner and an equal member in the delegation. And Olympia and I have been friends since then. We've actually done some work together since we both left the Senate. As she indicated, she's a fellow at the Bipartisan Policy Center, which I shared in creating. And it's just a real honor, Olympia, to have you here this evening, and for Jock, you to come with her. And it brought back, for me, warm memories of when we did work together back in the congressional delegation. And our state motto is Dirigo, and I hope that perhaps sometime in the future Maine can lead the rest of the country in having delegations to Congress that recognize that the highest obligation is not to their party, not to any ideology, but the people they represent from their state and from all of our country. So thank you as well. Thank you again. I want to thank all of the members of the board of the Mitchell Institute. All of them are volunteers. They devote hundreds of hours of their time to this effort. You've seen some of them here this evening, and they play the central role in guiding and leading this organization forward. So I'm very, very grateful to the board members, and I would ask them if they would stand again, and please join me in recognizing them for their efforts. Each year we are fortunate to have representatives of several of the institutions of higher learning in Maine that are attended by recipients of our scholarships. There are several of them here tonight, and I'd like to read all of the names and then ask them to stand as a group and ask you to join in recognizing them. Ron Cantor, President of Southern Maine Community College. Glenn Cummings, President of the University of Southern Maine. Jim DeLugas, President of St. Joseph's College. Kate Foster, President of University of Maine, Farmington. Danielle Conway, Dean of the University of Maine Law School. Richard Hopper, President of Kennebec Valley Community College. Dr. James Colbill, Provost of the University of New England. Laurie LaChance, President of Thomas College. And Dawn Tusky, President of Maine College of Art. Would you please stand, please, and everybody join me in thanking them. Danielle just moved to Maine, to the University of Maine Law School from Hawaii. You came just in time for winter, so we especially welcome. I hope you brought all your big coats and long underwear from Hawaii, but you'll love it. I want to thank our major sponsors, Linda and Stuart Price. Linda's my niece, and she and Stuart have been major sponsors of this dinner for several years now. Unfortunately, they couldn't be here, but we're very grateful to them. The Wex Company, TD Bank, and this Marriott at Sable Oaks, and in particular the Walsh family, who owned and operate this facility and who for so many years have been extraordinarily generous to us. So please join me in thanking the Prices Wex. Many of you here, indeed most of you, contributed to our capital campaign, which we called the Campaign to Open Opportunity, which we conducted over the past 2 years. And thanks to you, and in particular thanks to the Alphon Foundation for the lead gift, we were able to raise $11,750,000 to add to our endowment. And that will enable us in the near future to raise the amount received by each scholarship recipient to $10,000. So thank all of you very much for your help in that regard. Now, Nate promised I would tell a story, so I have to help him keep his promises. I spoke at a business conference in Washington last night, and I told a couple of stories, which I've told here so often that I won't repeat them tonight. But a guy got up in the audience in the question-answer period, and he said, we're not from Maine, but we have a vision of Maine, an attitude toward Maine that's very positive. And he said there's a brand of humor called Maine humor, so why don't you tell any Maine stories? And I thought about it and thought, well, you know, I do tell them outside of Maine, but I rarely tell them here. So tonight, instead of repeating the jokes I've told in each of the past 4 years, I'd like to tell a Maine story, which is in my book, and it's a true story, and it's intended to typify the Maine myth, which we hold about ourselves: quiet, thoughtful, independent, integrity, and wily in outsmarting loudmouth people from away. So this is a true story. Almost all of you have heard of, and many of you, perhaps most of you, have been to Acadia National Park, and you know there is a lovely restaurant, concession restaurant in the park, the Jordan Pond House. Years ago, just about the time I entered the Senate at burned down, and Olympia and I and the other members of the delegation were able to have a little bit of money to help cap the private fundraising which occurred to rebuild the building. And after it was rebuilt, I went up, and I now have a home up there. I went up to meet two friends of mine from Maine, one guy from Portland and one from Bangor, to spend a couple of days hiking. And we met at the Jordan Pond House. Well, the guy from Portland showed up, but the one from Bangor didn't. So we waited about a half hour. When he didn't show, we figured we'd go call him and find out should we wait any further, or did he forget about it? So this is long enough ago, there were payphones in the Jordan Pond House, and we went out and we encountered a man at the payphone plugging in quarters, banging the box, and he had a card propped on top of the box with a lot of numbers on it. He couldn't make the connection on the phone. He couldn't make it work, and he was cussing a blue streak and making to his wife, who was standing nearby, very unkind comments about Maine and Maine people and Acadia National Park. Well, of course, the line grew. There were 6 or 7 people in line, and we all listened in embarrassed silence. And then the guy behind me tapped me on the shoulder. He said, "Excuse me, aren't you Senator Mitchell?" And I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "Well, I'm from Bangor." He told me his name, Bob, and he said, "I'd like to shake your hand." So we shook hands and make conversation. He said to me, "Are you here on vacation or are you working?" I said, "I'm on vacation. We're going hiking here for a couple of days." So to be courteous, I said, "Well, how about you? Are you here on vacation?" He said, "No, I'm working." He said, "In fact, I'm working right now." I said, "You're working right now? What do you do?" He said, "I'm a telephone repairman." He said, "When that guy from New York runs out of quarters, I'm going to fix that phone." Before I say a few serious words, I want to comment about just a couple of other people, some of whom's names you saw on the screen. This past week, Leon Gorman passed away, and my sister-in-law, Pernilla Mitchell, passed away. They were both, of course, very dear and close to me. Leon and I were in college together. We were fraternity brothers, and we became friends then, and we remained friends through our entire lives. Leon was a great man and a great citizen of our state, and it was a huge personal loss to me and to his family, and I'm glad that we have remembered him here tonight. One other name you saw on the screen was that of Don Rue. His family is here, some of his family. Don was also in our class at Bowdoin and a fraternity brother of Leon and I. So in one of the funny twists of fate, all three of us were friends and fraternity brothers together. Don was a wonderful guy and a close friend. He passed away at a tragically early age. His son, Dave Rue, has been a huge supporter of our program, extremely successful entrepreneur, and I'm very grateful to the Rue family for their presence here this evening, and seeing both Dawn and Leon mentioned at the same time brings back to me warm memories of Bowdoin. My parents had no money with which to send me to college, and I received many helping hands and was very lucky to be able to attend and graduate from Bowdoin. I was able to do it because when I went for my interview with the director of admissions and told him that my parents had no money, he said to me, "Are you willing to work?" And I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "Well, you come and we'll find enough work for you to enable you to pay your way through school." And on my very first day of classes at Bowdoin, I went to school in the morning, and then I reported for my first day of work at the Brunswick, who was then called the Brunswick Coal and Oil Company, owned by the Morrow family. Mal Morrow was the athletic director at Bowdoin, and he'd called his cousin and sent me down there. And I just turned 17. My parents didn't own a car, so I'd only driven a car twice in my life, gotten a driver's license, but had never been in a truck, let alone drive a truck. And the foreman said to me, "Can you drive a truck?" And I said, "Oh, yeah." He said, "Well, go take that flatbed over there, and drive up to Thomaston, and load it up with 90-pound bags of cement, and then bring it back here." I gulped, started shaking, my hands got sweaty, but I went and I climbed into the truck, and with rising panic, I tried to figure out how I was going to start this truck, how I could possibly drive it, back it up out of the driveway into the street. And what seemed to me like 2 seconds, but must have been a couple of minutes, and the foreman yelled up to me, "You okay, kid?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm okay." Finally, I got the truck started. I drove it from Brunswick to Thomaston, loaded it up with over, I think it was 100 or 290-pound bags of cement, and drove it back to Brunswick. Now, since I traveled about 5 miles an hour, it took all day. But I made it safely back. And 4 years later, when I got my Bowdoin diploma, the thought that passed through my mind was, I never once wrecked a piece of Morrow's equipment. And among the many helping hands I've received, none was more meaningful to me than that from the Morrow family. And Dick and Eleanor Morrow are here. They've been wonderful friends all of my life, and I want to thank them for it. Thank you. Now, as I've said many times, I don't know that they thought I might become a Democrat and be elected as a Democrat to office, but they're such wonderful people that even if they'd known, I don't think it would have made any difference. So thank you very much, Dick and Ella, for coming, and thank you again for all your help. Well, let me say just a few words. It's been a long evening, and I don't want to keep you too much longer. The 2015 scholars, many of whom are here, represent the 20th class of scholarship recipients. We started in 1995. And as you've heard, thanks to you and others who've supported this program, we've now helped just under 2,500 students from Maine get a college education. You heard from Kendra and Scott tonight. And I want to tell you, as great as they were, they are not unique. They are representative of all of the scholarship recipients, all of whom are intelligent, thoughtful, hardworking, determined. And there is nothing in life beyond my family that gives me more personal pride and gratification than to see these terrific young people moving up, succeeding in life, and giving back to this great state from which all of us have received so much. They're now back in this state, most of them. They're business people, entrepreneurs, they're doctors, they're teachers, they're journalists, state senators and state representatives. Together they're improving our state, and I know that the future generations of scholars will do also. It all began when an idea I had while I was in the Senate and traveled to every high school in Maine, where I met thousands of students, many of whom were mirror images of myself at that stage in life. I was 16 when I graduated from high school, insecure, uncertain, overwhelmed with feelings of inferiority. But for the many helping hands I received, beginning, of course, with my wonderful parents, to whom I owe everything, getting help from people like the Morrows and many others who had no interest other than to help someone in need, I was able to get an education. And as I saw these other youngsters around the state, in the same, I felt I was looking at myself. And I determined that I had to do something to make it possible for each of those children to have the same chance I had. Our country has made such spectacular improvements and gains in my lifetime that it is truly unrecognizable. But like all human endeavors, we are imperfect as individuals and as a society. And in one important respect, I believe that our country has not made progress and has, in fact, regressed. I believe that a young boy today, growing up in the circumstances in which I grew up, has less chance of upward mobility than I had in my life. It's a different world, mostly better. But in meeting the American aspiration of opportunity for all, we have not moved forward. We have in our state now, in every corner of our state and all across this country, millions of young Americans who don't have the same chance that I had and that these scholars here have this evening. Opportunity for all is an American aspiration. It is not an American reality. And each of us in our own way, and I'm doing what I can in my way, Olympia is doing what she can with her own fund for young women, but each of us in our own way, as individuals and as Americans, have to do all we can, in whatever way we can, to open the doors of opportunity to all. I believe that the remarkable success of America, which despite its many serious imperfections remains the most open, the most just, the most free society in all of human history, is based ultimately on being able to draw on the maximum talent of every individual in that society. Our country was the first true meritocracy in all of human history. We have drawn on the talents of all, not just a select few, as was the case with almost every society in history that preceded us. But we're not gaining the maximum benefit. Genius knows no language, no religion, no color, no history. It can come from anywhere. It can come suddenly. The two most famous business enterprises in modern America are Apple and Amazon. Steve Jobs founded Apple. His father was born in Syria. Jeff Bezos founded Amazon. His adoptive parents came from Cuba. In a single generation, a handful of years, two men have created enterprises that are historic in nature because they lived and breathed the free air of America and because they had a chance. Someone helped them out. And somewhere in a small town in Maine, there's a kid who has the prospect, the talent inside that has to be unlocked that will create another Amazon or Apple or become the President of the United States or some other contributing role in our society. So we have to do more, and in particular in education. The information and technology and communications revolutions through which the world is passing will be judged by future historians to be as significant an event in human history as was the Industrial Revolution, which transformed the lives of almost everyone who has followed. And what it means, above all else, is that in order to succeed as an individual and a society, there has to be a higher level of knowledge, a higher level of skill, and ultimately, therefore, a higher level of education. And the impact on individual lives is unmistakably and unarguably clear. Every study ever made confirms that the higher the level of education, the higher level of income, the higher level of attainment. We all know stories of people who are remarkable successes in life with little or no education. Those are isolated individual cases. And the recent economic data demonstrate once again, at the peak or the depth of the latest recession, unemployment among college-educated persons was 4%. Unemployment among those with a high school education was 8%, and unemployment among those without a high school education was 16%. And those relative ratios have remained firm throughout all of modern history, no matter the ups and downs of the economy. So we have to do better, not just for the lives of the individuals themselves, like Scott and Kendra, who will live better lives, but also because of the contribution to the whole society. The more people that do well, the better off we all are. So I just close with an expression of my profound gratitude to all of you. Some of you have been here every year, have contributed every year, and I can't tell you how deeply grateful I am. Beyond my family, this is the most important thing in my life. I know that we cannot achieve, in a mathematical sense, our objective. We will never be able to assure that literally every single Maine child who has the talent and willingness to work, to get a college degree, and advance in life will get them. But just think of all the good we can do if every day we try to reach that goal. Just think of all the youngsters that we can reach if we try to reach all of them. Thank you for helping us. Thank you for all you've done in making this journey possible. And thank you especially for being here this evening. Thank you and good evening. No, Olympia. Thank you. Thank you. Now, for years, I drew the name out of this basket, and then I realized that I was making one friend and 400 enemies. So now one of the dubious honors of the guest speaker each evening is to come on up and make one friend and 400 enemies. And I'm very pleased that Senator Snowe has consented to that. And she's not running for office anymore either, so she's okay to do it. Thank you, Olympia. You draw the name out.
Okay, don't all kill me, except for the one person who's going to get this. Okay. Andrea Gleason.
Andrea? Come on up.
Yeah. I can.
Yeah. Andrea, meet Bruce and Becky Epstein and your tour guide, Nate Kinney. Yeah. All right. Thank you all very much. Have a great evening.